Hello, everybody. My name is Cesar Reyes, also pronounced Cesar Reyes, and this is LOC Unbound. Books bring us together. The hope for this video series is to highlight the 2022 National Book Festival theme, which is, as we all know, books bring us together. This series allows us to shed light on individuals across the library and emphasize the power of storytelling, literature, and books, having forging connections between us all. Today, I am so happy to have Xander Harcourt with us today. I'm going to read his bio very quickly as an introduction. Xander is originally from Detroit, Michigan, working several years in management. His first career position was as police officer with the Detroit Police Department, where he left as a child abuse detective to move to the Washington, D.C. area. Xander has been with the Library of Congress Copyright Office for over 21 years. He has held several positions throughout the office, including supervisor, missing elements coordinator, senior copyright information specialist, Library of Congress leadership development alum, and most recently, quality assurance manager in copyright records. He has worked on several national book festivals in the past as an employee volunteer, discussing copyright with patrons, as a subject matter expert, as well as all things LOC, and ambassador, assisting a variety of authors navigating the festival. The highlight of his NBF experience was working on a detail and signature programs with Jared and Michelle as the employee coordinator for the National Book Festival. Xander, thank you so much for being with me today. How are you?
I'm great, Cesar.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear it. And for our first question, I'm going to ask, can you tell us about a time when a book brought you closer to someone?
Well, yeah, so I'm gonna tell my age a little bit, but my mom would read to us these little golden book series. I think they first came out in like the 1940s.
Wow.
So we didn't really have a lot growing up, but she would get those books for us and read them to us. And before long, I found myself reading those books to my siblings. They
Wow.
brought our family closer together when times were really tough and we didn't have a lot of toys, or there was no
Yeah.
cable TV, there was no
Right. Wow.
internet, but we always had those books.
That's wonderful. And was that the moment you knew you loved literature?
Actually, it wasn't. So my favorite high school teacher was Miss Ann Thompson, and Martin Luther King High School in Detroit, big shout out to Detroit, who happened to be a classical voice music teacher. And
Wow.
she gave me a book called The Never Ending Story. It was originally published by a German author, Michael End, and translated into English by Ralph Mannheim. And what it is, I think she understood parts of me that at that time I didn't understand. And what I love about educators, particularly like Miss Thompson, is that they have the ability to change a kid's course of life, especially kids that will probably have a tougher time navigating life.
I definitely can relate to that. I have my own love of individual teachers from my early years in elementary school as well. Shout out to Mrs. Mellon, awesome individual. I'm curious as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about that time and that instance you knew you loved literature at all?
Well, I want to ask you if is it okay if I can be a little bit vulnerable?
Of course, please.
Okay,
Yes, thank
so,
you.
well, that was the book that definitively defined my start of the love of literature, where it transitioned from just reading books for school to actually reading books for pleasure. I also read books for protection from trauma. And I'll explain that because I experienced a lot of bullying throughout school,
Right.
from the start all the way through the end, even through college. So books allowed me not only an escape from my bullies, but it
Yeah.
allowed me to craft a plan, so to speak, of how I could leave them behind, and also to stand up for myself and other people when I saw instances of bullying. And I just like to tell everybody, it really does get better. Books help me realize that.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me. The power of books is just incredible. I'm curious, is that what brought you to work with the Library of Congress? Is that what you're here?
Actually, no, I actually ended up at the library accidentally.
Oh,
I've stayed at the library because it's one of the few places where I can show up authentically
Mm,
and not be looked at as different or weird. At the
mhm.
heart of it, I'm a nerd. I'll just be honest. All nerds unite.
Yes, that's
Blurred.
right.
Nerds are encouraged here at the library, right? So
Yes.
I, I like that I can perform with my colleagues in the LC Corral and then engage in like fascinating conversations at the John W. Kluge Center. I can watch movies on the lawn at the Jefferson Building and participate in a National Book Festival. You know, it just doesn't get better than that.
Most definitely. I'm super excited for this year's National Book Festival. It will be my first, so that's going to be awesome. Yes, and I really appreciate you talking about being a nerd. I myself am a nerd, happily self-proclaimed, and I definitely feel the library acceptance here. Being a
Yes.
junior fellow, it has been amazing. But you've been here for 21 years. And I'm curious, having held so many different positions, and now you're the quality assurance manager in the copyright records. Can you tell us a bit more about what that entails?
Sure. So I'm working on the historical public records program through Copyright Records. My office is headed by the outstanding leader, Denise Wolford and Maren Reed. I work closely with our digitization manager. Her name is Kristen Felt. She's great. The goals of the project is to secure and preserve historical records through digitization and make them available to the public in an easily accessible format. These historical records span from the 1870s through 1978. The quality assurance team's role is to review all the digitized records or deliverables turned over to copyright by the contractor doing the specialized work. Once we get that, the quality assurance is conducted in a highly controlled environment using FADGI guidelines. And FADGI is Federal Agency's Digital Guidelines Initiative that was actually developed at the library in large part, thanks Tom Rieger. And these guidelines are an objective set of best practices and guidelines that can be used to form a technical foundation for digitization activities.
Wow, that is huge. I'll tell you what, I'm getting my master's in library science right now. I know digitization is a huge conversation we're
Yes,
having in librarianship, especially being in a virtual environment, providing access. So that is like phenomenal work you're doing right now.
thank
Uh,
you.
uh, uh, and you talked about being a part of the copyright office. I'm curious, how does books and copyright go hand in hand?
Okay, I'll tell you that. Well, Answorth Spofford was the Librarian of Congress that was actually the genius behind transferring
Mm,
copyright to the Library of Congress in 1870. President Grant signed the copyright law of 1870, making the Library of Congress the first central agency for the registration and custody of deposits in the US. The law was incredibly brilliant because it not only brought books, maps, prints, photographs, and music into the institution without a cost. It ensures that the library will play a unique role in collecting, preserving, and sharing American life and culture into the future.
wow. And I know copyright is important, but I'm curious as to why is copyright so important?
Hmm. Great question, right? So the law requires 2 copies of the best edition of every copyrightable work be sent to the Library of Congress within 3 months of publication.
Mm,
While registering your copyrighted work isn't required, copyright is automatic upon creation. There are several advantages to registering your work. And I'll just list the top 5, my top 5.
okay, all right, yeah.
The first being public notice of your ownership. Copyright registrations are searchable at www.copyright.gov. Registration offers constructive notice to the public that you own the work and may help defeat claims of innocent infringement, where a person can't say, oh, I didn't know it was protected.
Mm,
It establishes legal evidence of ownership. Copyright registration provides proof of ownership and may relieve you of some of the costly burdens, provisions on statutory damages and attorney's fees associated with defending that copyright registration. It offers validity. Registration may demonstrate the validity of your copyrighted work if registered timely. Copyrighted works go through an extensive examination process. It
mm,
maximizes your damages. Without a timely registration, copyright holders may be limited to actual damages in the case of infringement, and those can be hard to prove or may be
mm.
nominal, as opposed to the statutory damages and attorney fees built into the law. It also gives you the ability to bring an infringement suit. And this is the most important benefit of copyright registration. As in most instances, a copyright holder cannot bring a lawsuit of copyright infringement to court without a valid copyright registration. I generally advise to register your copyrightable work as soon as possible to access all these benefits of registration and a host of more.
That is phenomenal. I had no idea that that's why copyright is. So thank you for sharing that with me. I feel very armored with that information for the future. If I ever write a book or some sort, I know to go copyright.
Copyright is the juice, I tell you. It's the engine that fuels the economy, from your movies to your artwork, everything. You'd be surprised what's covered under copyright.
Wow. That kind of brings me back to the book lover a bit. When we talked about books and copyright, why is it you think we continue to share stories with one another?
Well, personally, books and the power of stories are transformative, I think, for both the author and the reader. I'm what Stephen King calls, and he's my favorite author, a constant reader. Books allow us to safely explore all the dark and light places of worlds we couldn't have imagined on our own. Books make us all time travelers. They inspire us to become more than even what society may expect of us. Books have empowered me with the tools to not only navigate places and spaces that haven't been accessible to a person like me, but to be more mindful of the spaces I do have the ability to shape. I work hard to be more welcoming and inclusive. I work hard to be more kind. No one wants to be invisible, and books have helped me be able to see people, who they really are and who they want to be. Books have empowered me and given me the courage to ask people, how do you like to be treated and heard? Because everybody doesn't want to be treated and heard like I do. So I ask you, I do the platinum rule, which is to treat you like you want to be treated.
That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me. I have chills having heard that. And it makes you wonder, like, your connection to books. Is there a recent book that you've read that people may connect with?
So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to offer two.
More than happy, please.
Thank you. So the first one is called Don't Call Us Dead by Danez Smith, and Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance by Angela Duckworth. I actually reached out to her. I was so impressed with the book that I did reach out to her to tell her I was impressed with the book.
For the books you just shared, I'm curious, what about those books you feel connected to?
Well, I think for Don't Call Us Dead, it deals with, and that's by Danez Smith. It's a book of poetry, and I'm really not that much into poetry, but the poems move me so much, talking about the experiences of being like a Black gay guy in America and all those different things that you deal with. It's not just the microaggressions of being a Black man or just the microaggressions of being a gay man. It's like you have everything where you have those things stacked against you society-wise, but then when you find a place in your own community for comfort, being a gay man is hard because it's looked down upon so much in your own community. So it's really hard to find a space and a place where you feel safe. And if you're like me and a lot of my friends, we struggle because we want to give back. We've been so fortunate. We're so blessed with what we've learned and what we have to offer. We want to give that back to a community. And oftentimes you find yourself being rejected by the very community that you want to help.
Wow.
So far as the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, that book basically does a deep dive into how a person could be trained over and over and over in a role and they can't succeed. And the difference oftentimes, and I say this, and I've said this before, oftentimes a child's zip code can determine where they're going to end up in their life. You can, scientifically, it's been proven that you can look at a child's zip code and determine their entire course of life. And so I grew up in one of the worst zip codes in
Wow.
the country in Detroit.
Mm.
And so I am always so grateful and blessed that I ended here on Capitol Hill working in
Yes.
the Library of Congress, which I feel so fortunate because, you know, everybody can't be here. Uh,
Mm.
but why I like grit was what it told you is that when these things seem insurmountable, when the
Mm.
pressures around you and life, and you know you're not the most talented, you're not the most skilled or the smartest, the thing that differentiates you between the person that is that you just work harder at it. You know, when
Yes.
I look at things, uh, you know, those situations where I tried to get into the door. I didn't stop. It took me 3 times to get into the leadership development program. I almost
Really?
gave up. It's the best thing I ever did in my life. You just keep
Wow.
pushing at those doors. And that's what I call by grit. It's just the ability to never give up, even though you may not be the smartest or the fastest or the best looking or the best singer.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep showing up, and eventually a door will open up for you.
I have just one last question for you, and I can't thank you enough for being with me here today. It's most appreciated and sharing your thoughts and your experiences. Um, as a last question, what does it mean to you when you hear books bring us together?
That's a great question. And I'm so happy to be here and so grateful that you and excited that you included me in this conversation because I do
Mhm.
love books. Books allow us to step into other lives and share experiences. Uh, they reveal the intersectionality among us, those things that make us all human, and I hope the things that make us humane. It's a place of general agreement.
Mm.
Books are powerful and dangerous to some, which actually breaks my heart to see some of the things that are going on around the country where people are
Mhm.
banning and burning books. It's just heartbreaking
Yes.
because they have the power to enrich and recreate lives. They
Mm.
heal and unify on both an individual and societal level. I would never be who I am, have this amazing life, career, and opportunities at the Library of Congress, or be surrounded around by so many people I love, respect, and admire, had it not been for the truly transformative power of books that brought us all together.
Wow. Thank you, Xander. I can't thank you enough for your time. Are you going to be at this year's National Book Festival?
I sure am. I'm going to work. I know Michelle and Jared going to have me doing something to hurt my back, but I'll be there.
Beautiful. Okay, well then I'll see you there, and all you listening and watching, you can talk with Xander in person at the National Book Festival, and please do say hi. Thanks,
Thank
and
you.
take care.